you make the decision, you decide which article you would like to read, and you decide, all right, now you have 5 to 10 minutes, how many useful sentences? And the idea of useful sentences also requires your decision-making ability. And then you just write it down. And the more you do that, you can make notes. You do not only improve your English skill, you also train your mind to be a better decision maker.
So we should not just focus on some short-term goals, for example, like your scores on the test, but instead we have to put our more emphasis on the long-term goal. Do not compare yourself with others, but just to compare it with yourself. Sometimes when you see the progress in yourself, you can feel motivated.
That's right. So when we say how do we have motivation, how do we have the exposure, create environment, and if you don't have habit, there's no environment.
Hello everyone, this is Johnny, and today we have our special guest, Emilia.
Yes, I'm back again, second time.
And today we're talking about a topic that seems like a perennial topic, but I think it's also very important because come back down to the real, motivation of learning. I think students, they need to know why they want to learn English and how to motivate themselves to learn English. Take myself, for example, when I was little, learning English is just kind of the way for me to show off. It's kind of like a vanity, right? A vanity factor that, when I think that whenever I speak English, I can attract people's attention. I think that kind of like motivates me to keep learning English. And that's also the contributing factor that, makes me keep learning English as well. Because I think, wow, if you can speak English, that's, you can turn people's head. So I think that's a motivation for me. But what about your motivation? Is there any deep down any motivation for you?
That's a really great question, by the way. And I do love how you understand yourself. Like you say, vanity factor. So I have a slightly different approach. I'm not saying we don't need to look for motivation, but I would say before we find the motivation, maybe a better question or the priority is knowing what kind of learner you are.
Oh, okay. Can you fill me on that? Fill me in on that.
For example, I do share this kind of vanity factor. And I would say that now I can even treat it, English learning or any foreign language learning as how we commit to our workout session. Because 2 things I value the most in life, learning and exercise. And here I would say, and then maybe we can even put motivation aside. Why? There are definitely days that when you don't feel motivated doing anything. So back to what I mentioned in the first episode, make it part of your life, but don't make it a big task. Don't give it let's just say the toe order. You make it your habit, and then one day you will say, okay, I don't feel right when I stop learning English.
Yeah, that's a good point there because, I also like the comparison between your learning English and exercising. Because take myself, for example, I have gotten into the habit of working out on a daily basis. And I think, I can totally realize the importance of working out on a daily basis. And also, that's kind of like learning English. And I think that's the reason why a lot of English learners, in the end, they will end up as someone who is crazy about working out or exercising because they can tell the similarity between these 2 actions, right? If you can put your mind to learning English every day, you can also by the same token you can also put your mind to exercising every day, and then you can lose weight. So I think that's very same. That's the very same concept, between learning English and working out. So I think, you just have a point that if you really want to improve your English, you want to hone your skills, the exposure to it is, to it every single day is of critical importance. Right.
That's right. I mean, speaking of exposure, you say, right? So how do we understand exposure? You gotta first of all have the environment.
Yeah. So when it comes to exposure, are you still exposed to any kind of things like related to English learning nowadays? Like for me, maybe sometimes I watch some DVDs or movies in the comfort of my own home, and I also like to check out the words, the subtitles, to pick up some phrases or idioms so that I can familiarize myself with how native speakers will speak. So I think that's also one approach. How about you? Do you have any kind of like lifelong learning plan?
This is the part that I'm super passionate about. And also I do like that how excited that when you talk about workout, right? So two things in life, and I will encourage everyone to like understand these two things as how you take your English to the next level. Try to recall how you learn a musical instrument. Try to recall how you actually learn or practice any kind of sport. But back to my tip, I would also code it one successful habit that I truly have developed. That's how I take my notes every day. And every day now sounds a little bit crazy, right? And I have this notebook that where I spend only 5 to 10 minutes every day, and then it begins with these 3 questions I learned from some neuroscientists and doctors. So the first question is, what would I want to prioritize today? What is the most important thing today? And usually for me, I would like to write down like anything I want to learn. And it can be something random. For example, recently, one of my new hobbies and passions in life is Pilates. And I will Google or just read some information, and then sometimes I would just like, okay, this part is interesting, and I would just like write this content down.
Oh.
And I also improve my language skill, right?
Oh, to find something you're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes 2 of us because, I'm a big fan of basketball. When I was in high school, I always read basketball magazine, like the Hoops or the Slam.
Yeah.
And I would pick up some phrases or some good sentence pattern in the magazine articles. So I think that's also a very good approach. Try to expose yourself to materials that you are passionate about.
Yeah.
And it's very supernatural for you to pick up English. I think that's that also contributes to the fact that a lot of foreigners, when they can, hear your English, maybe the first question that will be, where did you pick up your English? Instead of where did you learn your English? Because the very way he used pick up means that you learn something effortlessly. So he supposed that maybe you must have lived abroad or stayed abroad for a certain period of time. So I think that's also very a flatter for people who are learning this language.
I mean, besides being flattering, don't you think we can also say that's kind of like the hope for the majority of our English learners in Taiwan?
Yeah.
So that's why that I say, yeah, it's good that you would like to say that, oh, where did you learn your English? Or like even for some parents, and they were just like, oh, we would like to have my children learn from native speaker. But English has evolved into this international language that we wouldn't limit it as native speaker. We would say it's a universal language that we would like to learn from the so-called good English speaker, well-educated English speakers, and I would say good teachers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So come to think of it, nowadays for a lot of the English learners, there are 2 things that will, deter them from keep learning because from keeping learning. One of them is that when you get a bad grade, you feel frustrated because a lot of students here, when they get a bad grade, they think that, oh, maybe they are not cut out for learning English, so they give up right off the bat. And secondly, when they find that, is there any other factors that can deter them from like keep learning English?
Definitely, I really do like this because it's also about that It's also about understanding human nature. We human nature get so stuck by even slight, tiny little sense of frustration. So that's why I would say, do not give yourself some like really challenging task. But definitely, you need to set the goal. So back to one of my learning habits. I give myself 5 to 10 minutes a day. And sometimes I skip it. It's all right. Just go on the next day.
Just 5 to 10
minutes.
You can absorb some bite-sized information.
Exactly.
Okay.
And for example, let's do a little bit demo. Let's just say you are the FUNDAY member. Okay, so how would you use that 5 to 10 minutes every day? Okay, you have your notebook. And here I would like to focus on the power of handwriting. Because you can also find like so many neuroscientists.
Typing, right?
Yeah, okay. You should just like actually write it down. So let's just say you are the FUNDAY member. All right, so every day you make the decision. You decide which article you would like to read. And you decide, all right, now you have 5 to 10 minutes. How many useful sentences? And the idea of useful sentences also requires your decision-making ability. And then you just write it down. And the more you do that, you can make notes. So that's the beauty of it. I tend to say this quite often. That's the beauty of it.
Very good.
You do not only improve your English skill, you also train your mind to be a better decision maker. Quite often, many students or their parents ask me that, okay, how come that we don't see the better result? And I would say, have you thought about how you prioritize things in your everyday life? Have you thought about how long does it usually take you to make decisions?
Yeah. So we should not just focus on some short-term goals. For example, like your scores on the test, but instead we have to put our more emphasis on the long-term goal. Like think about it in the future. You can imagine that you can have a better, a stellar command of English. So that will be a long-term goal that you should, focus on, so that you don't get frustrated easily by, one test score, one test result. And the second one, I think the second one is like sometimes when people, they don't, communicate easily with foreigners, they also feel frustrated. Especially when when they are asked directions on the street, or maybe when they have an encounter with a native speaker, they back down, and that will be also a frustrating experience for them. So sometimes that will feel scared because of that. Yeah. So how do you encourage people? Yeah, because take myself for example, I also encountered that situation before. Whenever I had a failure communicating, I would I think was me not good enough, or anything like that. Was it worthwhile to keep learning? Yeah. So sometimes we have this kind of setback in our lives. So I think what should we handle that kind of setbacks?
Yeah, what a beautiful question. So I will offer this tip, and I would say as our conclusion, like what Johnny also mentioned. First of all, you gotta admit that frustration is everywhere, but it's also okay, maybe something you view as frustrating, but might not be that for other people. If you have your workout routine, if you have your exercise habit, no matter what it is, any kinds of exercise. And exercise itself sometimes is not because I want to lose weight, I want to stay healthy, I want to compete or join any competition. If you have the exercise habit, you have better chances and better tools knowing how you conquer those frustrations. Because exercise itself is you know how to push yourself, keep going, regulate your breath, or just adjust anything. And that's just how we learn.
Yeah,
right?
And once you see the result, you can feel motivated again. For example, do not compare yourself with others. Compare the progress of you with that of others. But beautiful. Just to compare it with yourself. Sometimes when you see the progress in yourself, you can feel motivated. I think that's also a good strategy for that.
That's right. So when we say how do we have motivation, how do we have the exposure, create environment. And if you don't have happy, there's no environment.
Yeah, so, the last one is the resource, and you just happened to mention that I think Funday provides a golden opportunity for students to pick up English, in a different, various kinds of way. For example, we have like articles, we have conversations, we have like emails, movies and songs. Actually, those are the approaches that I adopted when I was little. When I tried to learn English, I used to listen to music, watch movies, and read English news. So I think that's an embodiment of how I learn English. So that's, I think, both of us recommend this to our audience here.
That's it, because Johnny, you really have already made it part of your life.
I'm still on my way. So how, and that last question is like how to make use of our like spare time, right? You just mentioned like try to make use of your spare time well, and try to absorb those bite-sized information, and yeah, you will get there.
Yeah, decision making again, everyone. If you say you don't have time, and then you make time.
Yeah, make time for that. All right, so thank you very much for coming to the show and sharing some good tips with us. All right, see you next time.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. I hope to see you again.
Okay,
Cheers.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.